one of my students for that matter. And I know
Wow.
that your mother's a teacher, isn't that right?
Absolutely, she is. That's why I'm extremely glad of the opportunity to speak here. Because,
Wonderful.
and secondly, I would have also preferred to come physically because I'm an old-fashioned sort of person. So I prefer, I still prefer paper to online and coming physically. But this is a very good medium because it saves a lot of time and it's much more efficient in that sense.
Absolutely.
Thank
And
you,
people
Principal
anywhere
Ma'am.
people anywhere across the world could be actually listening to you. So, so I've actually, I think on the side, passed on the link to a couple of friends who said, no, just give it to us. So just to tell the world and our students, so Ishkaran Singh Bhandari is a lawyer, public speaker, political analyst, legal expert, and a researcher based in New Delhi. He has a massive social media presence with over 14 lakh followers across platforms. He appears daily on all national news channels, and I think we are all privy to that. Irrespective of whichever channel that we go to, we definitely see Ishkaran there. As a lawyer, Mr. Bhandari has endeavored for the cause of justice in a multitude of prominent and high-profile cases, wherein a segment of powerful and influential people of the society were directly or indirectly involved. Amongst others, the Sunanda Pushkar murder case and the ongoing Sushant Singh Rajput case. He's also acted in the capacity of a counsel in a series of other prominent and noteworthy cases, the Nirbhaya case, the Asaram Bapu case, in fact, all high-profile cases, and certain notable defamation cases. Ishkaran has also been striving to expose anti-national and corrupt practices in a number of ongoing cases, such as the National Herald case and the AirAsia corruption case. And the reason I said that I'm a huge fan of yours is because you have a certain quality that we would definitely want all our children to have. And that quality is to have an opinion on things. Because, they always turn around and say Indians are fence sitters. We always take a very neutral stand, and we fear to express our views because we are so bothered about what the world is going to think about us. So with you, we feel koi farak nahi padta. You're so bindas in the way you say it, and it's like it comes out so clearly that, and which I feel that after this session I would want my children to imbibe and inculcate from you. So without further ado, over to you.
Thank you. So I start speaking. Is it live?
Anji, please.
Thank you. So firstly, students, I know when I start, you may be thinking one more person to lecture us. That is unfortunately the lot of students, because everybody believes you are the future. So everybody wants to share their experiences with you, tell you things. Sometimes you may feel it's a lecture, but I will try to keep it as brief as possible and hopefully share some knowledge, some things which are of immediate benefit to you as well as long-term benefit. So firstly, I'm extremely happy to have the opportunity provided by your principal, Ms. Komal Sood, Ms. Harleen Kaur, Ms. Harpreet Kaur, and I am happy. I'll tell you why. Not because it's the thing to say. We normally say I'm very happy wherever we go, but I'm actually happy to address you because I think you are the future of India. And whatever you do with India will affect my future, because my future also lies in India. So in a sense, I am vested in your doing well, because some of you, new generation people in your teens, early 20s could be billionaires in tech industry, revolutionize India, and I hope you do. And if you do that, please hire me. So let me plug myself also. But the point is, you are the future, and we are all vested in what you do. So that is why I'm extremely happy to have this opportunity to address you. The topic I have been given is of extreme relevance in today's world: drug abuse. Briefly, drug addiction. What is addiction is also something you need to see. And you would have all these textbook definitions of addiction. To me, addiction is something you do to your detriment and you believe you can leave in a second. But unfortunately, that second never comes. That could be people who have various problems. Some people would be doing that with something as simple as sugar, overeating that even though they know their doctor's advice they should not do it. For some people, it could be, I don't know, waking up with a couple of cups of coffee and thinking we will snap our fingers and next day I'll wake up, it won't be. But those are minor addictions. Drug addiction, and I will not go into various forms of addiction because that would take too much of your time, and I promised you I won't lecture you too much. And I want your question and answer session, as I think is to happen in the end. Drug addiction does not need a definition of addiction, because drug is per se a no. Even if you have it once, thinking it causes no harm, it's cool. You see all these movies, and now not only Hindi movies, you have access to all platforms, internet, OTT streaming, where some of you may think it's a cool thing to do. That will actually end up making a fool of you if you think it's cool. And why does one need to talk to you about drug addiction? Every day you hear it's bad. That should be sufficient. But one needs to talk to you about drug addiction, because unlike certain other things, for example, do you need to hear every day, don't put your hand in boiling water? You don't need to. Even a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, if he touches a hot plate or puts his hand in a boiling water, will learn the lesson, will not do it. If you see a pot of oil boiling, you won't dip your finger in it to test it. You absolutely will not. Why? Your mom doesn't tell you 10 times. Your teacher doesn't tell you 10 times, don't put your hand in the boiling water. Why do you not do it? Because the impact is felt in nanoseconds. You put your hand in oil, you will scald your hand. So you feel the impact in nanoseconds. Unfortunately, the drug impact is not felt in nanoseconds. It is thus even more devastating, because by the time you feel the impact, it has scalded your body, your future, and your family's future. I wish the impact of the first time you smoke or have a form of drug was as immediate as putting your hand in boiling water. We won't need to have this discussion. You would know it in a second. But it is not so. It will never be so. Second problem why you need to discuss this is because a lot of people think, oh, what we see in advertisements of the ill effect of drugs, they are so extreme. Person looks spaced out, he looks lifeless, he looks energyless. You are what, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and I hope none of you have tried. But if some of your cousins, anybody has tried, you feel, mujhe to kuch nahi hua. Nothing happened to me. This is all exaggeration. And as people elder to you often tell you, and you tune it out because it's exaggeration to you. In this case, believe me, it's not an exaggeration. The first time you do not, or probably may not feel the ill effects because you are so young. Your constitution, your body is so strong that you will not feel immediate ill effects. Secondly, those who make these drugs, produce these drugs, manufacture these drugs, grow these drugs, they don't want you to fall ill immediately, else you will not be their customer. So it is a product which, as I said, the harm keeps on increasing with usage. And it's a very slippery slope, extremely slippery slope. So please do not go into the concept that kuch nahi hota, people exaggerate and do it. And with that, I will add COVID. You see, COVID disproportionately affects people as they're older. You have seen the death rates. Why? Not because you people are special. It's just biology. The younger, at a certain age, teenage, you have the best constitutions. So even COVID affects you less. Doesn't mean COVID isn't dangerous. Same way, you don't have, usually you won't have cataract because your bodies are young. Usually you will not need specs as much. Almost everybody after 40 needs reading glasses because your body is healthy. So a lot of people give me this argument, marijuana won't do anything, pot won't do anything, it will have no ill effects. Believe me, a lot of the reasons you don't have ill effects is your age, is your biology, is your constitution is so young and so healthy that you do not see the effects. So please do keep that in mind when people or your cousins tell me, "Main to 5 saal se kar raha hu, I'm doing it for 10 years, nothing has happened to me." It surely will happen, and it will happen as you grow older, faster. And no matter how young you are, one day you will grow older. You will feel the pinch one day. For parents also, sometimes it's a problem because they also don't see immediate ill effects. That's why I gave the example of boiling water. If they see a boil on your hand, you are a kid, you can't speak, they would still know you did this. For them also to realize, because there is most parents and most teachers also want your best, and they do not presume or live in a negative atmosphere that this child is doing this because he must be doing drugs. There is a presumption of trust in you for parents and teachers. There is a presumption of belief that you would be doing good things because you have been taught good things. And I don't blame them. Parents and teachers have to live with the presumption that you are doing good things. If they start looking at you as if you are not doing good things, the consequences would be difficult for you. But that presumption sometimes goes against them. So more than parents and teachers in this informed world, the onus is on you yourself not to get into this. I will briefly tell you about the laws. That is not too much. Basically, all form of drugs in India is banned. You are not in Amsterdam. All form of drugs, pot, marijuana, what you see on TV, prescription pills. And honestly, I am not an expert on what type of prescription pills exist because I have never faced the issue. And I hope you don't know the names. I hope you aren't experts, but just take it from me. Prescription pills of all types, as well as marijuana, cocaine, heroin, etc. Everything is wrong. And why I say it's wrong? You only difference is what level of punishment you get based on the quantity. That's the only difference. Higher the quantity, that's called commercial quantity. Commercial quantity is you go to jail for 20 years or so. Then there are these self-use quantities where you go to jail for lesser period of time. And depending on the drug, the quantity shifts. But as a safe rule, as a simple rule, all types of drugs are illegal. You do not need to do a deep dive into it. Only the consequences and the jail terms, if you are ever in trouble, you would need to know. The question which comes is, why is adolescent especially vulnerable? Why are you especially vulnerable? Why don't we have these talks with people who are in their 40s? Very rarely would you have professionals in a company and somebody coming and giving a talk, don't do drugs. But for adolescents, for teenagers, it is given. It's again biology. The way your constitution is strong to resist COVID, the way your constitution is strong to resist various diseases, as I told you, same way your brain is in a growing stage. And if it gets addicted to it, the addiction is all the more stronger. Again, it's not in today's world, every kid, because people have 1 or 2 kids, feels they are special. This is nothing special about you. It's just your brain. If you do drugs, it will make you more addictive. Your body is more resilient. So you have the plus and the minus both. And if your brain gets addictive, slowly, it will keep on wanting newer and newer and stronger drugs. That is called gateway drugs. I'll come to it in a bit because most people start small. A lot of you do it, common reasons. It's new experience, it's fun, peer pressure. And on peer pressure, I always tell you, believe you me, I hope you have your school friends, but most of you will go to different colleges, some of you into different cities, some of you into different countries. And today you pick up bad habits because of peer pressure. But believe you me, your life will not be with the same group of friends you are talking every day in 10th, 11th or 12th. You would have newer friends, but your habits will be with you for the rest of your life. Your friends may not be. In fact, if you study statistics from school to college to professional life, depending on the professions you go or marriage, you might not even have 1 or 2 friends or maybe 3 friends from your school. And they also may make you after 20 years when you have reunions. So do not, if anybody is doing something wrong, please tell them not to do it. Insist not to do it. If they don't listen, that is my view. Move away. Save yourself. Protect yourself. Try to protect them, but protect yourself also. And if each one of you protects yourself, all of you will be protected. Because these habits are extremely dangerous. I again repeat. Now the big problem, I feel the big problem which comes is that you want to do something which is different, something which is, let's put it this way, thing which may not have too many consequences. And that's the problem I invariably suffer with. How to tell people that something is bad for you in the long run, when in the immediate run, they can deal with the consequences. That is why it is called gateway drugs. It's a slippery slope. Your age, your brains in the developing stage they are, you start off with something small, which is illegal also, but it will get you hooked and addicted more and more. And the symptoms later on, you will see, you will lose interest in friends, you will lose interest in your studies, There will be a change in your behavior pattern. There will be a lot of violence. Even for that example, let me tell you, a lot of you exercise in gym, these gym steroids, that's what it's called, roid rage, because you are injecting chemicals in your bodies. So those who over gym and are taking all those roids, I did a case, very famous case. One of the reasons I feel, I'm not taking the name because it's still ongoing, a young girl died in that. And one of the reasons was because they told me later, the husband was taking all sorts of products to go to gym, and those products were banned in India, illegal, and he got so addicted because 2 days he won't lift. I don't know how many of you are gymming because it's obviously a younger age, but some of you might be doing it, or sports you are doing, or you want to enhance your performance, which is anyways illegal, but that was called roid rage. An unfortunate thing happened, partly fueled by the desire to gym. So gym is good, exercise is good, but if you take the wrong means to do the right thing, that will also have extremely serious consequences. In this case, a young girl lost her life. Nothing, no reason, just a rage. So that is why I say, when you are young, you have the best opportunity to lead your life in a manner which avoids risks. And your principal ma'am raised a very nice point. Indians are not fence sitters. Indians are usually fence sitters. And I was talking to a Harvard professor. He said, when we ask in Harvard, would you go into business or into service, employment? Most of them, they say, raise their hand and ask about probability theory. Theories of how successful would I be in business, vis-a-vis the risk, would I need to raise loan, capital, etc. And you talk to IITs and places in India, invariably the answer is employment. He said, I joked that employment in a sense is guaranteed poverty, because you will get what? 5%, 10% increase per annum. You would retire at a particular age. Whereas if you are an entrepreneur, you have no age to retire. Your risks are more. You may not make anything, but you could be a Mark Zuckerberg. You could do anything. That decision has to be made on probabilities. But in Indian mindset, unfortunately, it's not probability. We lean towards safety and security and government job, because all things with probability have a risk inherent in it. And that was okay for the older generations. That was okay even 20 years ago. Today, with an online world, I think a lot more of you need to be risk takers, but risk takers in the good things, not in the drugs. And I will just end by putting the words, and I would take your questions. I don't know how long I've gone on. Unfortunately, I didn't see time. Is it? Oh, 20 minutes. That's what I thought. And I would just say this. Charles Dickens called it, and I can't better him. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. It was a season of light. It was a season of darkness. It was a spring of hope. It was a winter of despair. And I say this why? Because it is actually the best of times. All of you in a school, prestigious like Army Public School, live lives better than kings lived 500 years ago. Sounds surprising. Why do you live lives better than kings did 500 years ago? Because you have indoor plumbing. You wake up, you have hot water, you have cold water, doesn't need anything fancy. Your house is secure. Winds don't come in. Your medicine is secure. Your longevity of life, if you just study data, has shot up to levels which kings used to die in 30s, 40s. And I'm talking kings, not even talking rich men. I'm talking from the absolute 0.001%. Today, you live better than the 0.0000001% lived. Just by being in a normal family, just by coming to a good school. That is why it is the best of times. It is also the worst of times, because now, because life is so comfortable, at 15, you are not going to fetch water. 100 years ago, most of you may have been married by this age, 15, 16, 17, just 100 years ago in India. Today, nobody talks about it. In cities, at least till your late 20s, your career is set. It is the best of times. On any parameter, if you compare with just 100 years ago, where you had to go to war, where you had to fend for yourself, where you didn't have plumbing, where you didn't have water, where you didn't have medicine, where childbirth rate was what and death rate was what, whereas your life longevity was what. So an ordinary person, the way humans live for 10,000 years, this is in that sense the best of times, the golden age. It is also the worst of times, and I say this because now with ease comes distractions and also access. It's a global market. Any drug can flood in. Any bad thought can come to you from internet. Any lifestyle can be suggested to you from internet. Nobody needs to meet you. Nobody needs to personally be in your surroundings to misguide you. You can be misguided from remote. You can be lured from remote. You can be sold drugs from remote. So in that sense, it's also the worst of times. And that has always been true. It is on you to make it the best of times or the worst of times. Everything is in your favor. This lecture is now over. I am gone, but it's your life. So please make good, intelligent choices for yourself and for India. Thank you.
I think it's time to bridge the gap between you and our students. They have been eagerly waiting. So direct conversation of you with our students. So I would like to call upon student moderators for today, Tarushi Bahuguna and Palak Saladhi, to take over the Q&A session. Over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. A very good morning to you, sir, and thank you so much for all the information you gave. Due to time constraints, only my co-moderator and I will be asking you questions that we gathered from all the students. So I'll quickly start with the first question, sir. We are aware that the drug menace is a rampant problem in Punjab since a very long time now. However, it became a national issue only after certain celebrities were involved in it. Sir, do you think this is a fair approach towards such threatening and prevalent issues? This question is by Sajal Son, sir.
Firstly, drug problem, I think, is a pan-India problem. But yes, as you grow, you would realize certain things bring a spotlight to an issue. Like, unfortunately, rapes haven't stopped after Nirbhaya, but Nirbhaya became a tipping point. Similarly, there are certain incidents which become a tipping point. So elections, politicians, whatever motives they have, drugs in Punjab became a highlighted issue. And there is a double factor in this because you're asking me, is it a good thing? In a sense, it's a good thing that it brought attention to an issue which was under the surface. In a way, it is obviously selective, and that is what politics is all about. It is always about selectivism. It is always about attacking states where you are not in power. So, but that is the political process. In the whole, in net, I say it's a good thing because at least it brought attention to an issue, and very often shining spotlight on an issue, bringing attention to an issue, a bad issue or a good issue, is in the long run good. In the short run, it may be selective, it may be biased. Some people in Punjab may feel it is unfair, but long run, drug is not a good thing. And you have to start somewhere. Like now, a lot of issues were in Bollywood about drug problems. And then I don't watch movies much. So I heard Sandalwood is the movie industry of Bangalore. And their actors arrested and in jail for drug possession and commercial quantities. So it started with Bollywood. Some may say it is unfair. Some may say all industries have it. But you have to begin cleanup somewhere. You can't keep waiting that one day we will pick up all industries, IT, Bollywood, and you can take medical, etc., etc. You have to start somewhere. So net, I say it's good, but yeah, it's selective. Obviously, it's selective.
Thank you, sir. What are the implications of cross-border drug smuggling via the LOC and the LAC? And how does every consumer encourage this deadly syndicate? This question is brought to you by Animisha.
Thank you for the question. It's actually a very good question. I should have covered it in my talk. A lot of people don't understand this. What is called narco terror? When giving you an example, you are a student in school. So some of your friends would be in sciences, some would be in maths, some would be in arts, some would be in sports, right? But you know all of them. In school, it's an ecosystem. Same is crime. Crime is an ecosystem. Smuggling drugs isn't easy. Smuggling arms isn't easy. Smuggling terrorists isn't easy. So those who do it get an expertise and often coordinate with each other or are directly involved in the same activity. So those who do drugs, invariably, and these are UN reports on it, that's why it's called narco terror, are involved in terror activities. And not only that, so when you smoke up, the money that's generated is black money. What happens to that? That then has to go out of India. So you get into Hawala operators. So supposing a politician or a administrative officer, IPS, IAS is somehow involved in this, then his money is rooted out also. So that gives people a blackmail on that person. So the effects are multidimensional. A, you destroy your life. B, you invariably are in cahoots with organizations which are in terror. C, it is Hawala money, so that is blackmail money. And D, if one of you do very well in life and are used to this drug supply, you become vulnerable to blackmail yourself also, if you enter into those professions, if you are not just a private businessman, right? So the effects, it's like a billiard table. You smack the ball, you do not know in what directions the effect goes, and crime has always been a multiple-headed hydra. So with terror, black money, drug, it's a very, very dangerous cocktail.
I think Mrs. Sood has a question for you, Ishkaran.
Ishkaran, I just wanted to ask, and I say it because I'm an educator. And I think I say this on behalf of a lot of teachers. If you see when you were in school, or I would even go back and when we were in school, teachers used to be far stricter. You were able to get away with a lot. But now, obviously, when we talk about child rights, so to speak, it's at an all-time high. How would you say this has impacted in terms of the crime rate as far as juveniles is concerned? And do you think that in India, juvenile law or anything else, because, as a mother, as an educator, I feel if you are old enough to commit a rape, then you need to be treated like an adult because it's an adult crime that you've committed. But unfortunately, all of us are aware of the fact that even in the Nirbhaya case, the juvenile gets away almost like scot-free, whereas all the other people, whether they are hanged or they commit suicide, that's a separate issue. But basically, they were convicted. So does the Indian juvenile law needs a revision somewhere? Because I feel, again, when you're looking at any time between 16 to 18, at 18 you have a right to vote, but obviously you don't have, you can get away with murder literally. So.
So I will answer both the questions. One is about this child right, and my views may not be liked by your students. And the other is juvenile crime. That's exactly what happened in Nirbhaya. I was in court. I had challenged the law that if you are doing adult crime, as you put it, you should have adult punishment. And that is the law in most other countries. The judge decides based on the crime. Obviously, there's a certain age, 12 years, below 12 you're not, or below 15 in some countries, depending on the country. The judge, either the judge or the prosecutor, different systems, decides, is this crime heinous enough to be called an adult crime? And then they give you half the punishment an adult gets. So supposing an adult would get 20 years, you get 10 years, which is a significant punishment. Versus in India, where it was a blanket immunity. And the immunity was so blanket that even your bone testing, if it was iffy, the benefit would go to you. So supposing you were coming at 18 and a half, 19, you would still get the benefit. And your school certificate was a very important document. Now, as you know, even today in villages, sometimes school certificates and birth certificates when you're registering are very inaccurate, but you would get the benefit of that. So that's why it was challenged, and we went till Supreme Court. Supreme Court passed some interim orders and then said it's for the parliament to legislate. And in that case, the parliament did legislate. Mrs. Maneka Gandhi was the woman and child minister, and she did push and I met her also, and she did push the bill through. And 16 years is now the age. If you do above 16, then instead of 18, then you are. But to your larger question, if you are adult enough to do a crime, you should be punished. I absolutely agree with it. But I would classify it in two types. If it's a crime of the moment, in the sense students having a fight and that leads to something unfortunate, then yes, you can treat them as juvenile or adult. It's a gray area. But if it's a planned, organized crime, like rape, or anything else, which is not in the moment somebody pushed me, I pushed, and something happened. There you need to throw the law at them and treat them as adults. To the first question of child rights, I actually think, and children won't like it, they are pampered too much. We grew up hearing spare the rod, spoil the child. I know how many times I got beaten on my knuckles. I was not the most sober child in school. And I think that's the right way. But in today, you mollycoddle them so much, you protect them so much. Even if you go abroad, you have so many these, even you protect them from speech, safe spaces, you will not talk freely. See, all these child rights protection, some of them you may not like in the sense as a principle that yes, there should be control on speech or ideas. There have to be safe speeches, which is a very liberal concept now. The flip side, the other side of it is child rights where the child should not be punished because it will be detrimental. But the point of school is teaching. Would you have safe spaces in the real world, in business world? You won't have. Would you not have punishment for your actions in the real world? Of course you would have. So should you not inculcate that in the child that if you cross certain bright red lines, yes, you will get beaten. Yes, you would get hit with a scale on your hand, or you will be punished, or you would be made to run around the field 20 times as our time sports teachers used to. You used to keep running. Today that would probably be called child abuse, whereas we used to be made to run and go up the stairs, down the stairs. So both angles, some the teachers don't like. A lot of teachers support safe spaces. I'm not saying do extreme hate speech, but contentious ideas need to be debated in debating societies. Not so much a problem in India, but in abroad it's become a huge problem. And unfortunately, whatever happens abroad, we adopt in India. So I won't be very surprised if your debating platforms and your stages are sanitized and you can't have debates on certain issues, will creep into India very fast. Out there, it is completely there already. And second part of that is that physical punishment, it can't be excessive. Maybe it need not be physical also, but punishment has to be there. Without punishment, how do you distinguish between reward and punishment? If rewards are there, punishments have to be there. That's my view. Students may not like it.
Thank you, sir. The next one is my question to you. So you started your career working under some top-notch personalities. Can you please elaborate how you managed to get these opportunities? Because it's a very great achievement in itself. And I'm sure our law aspirants would love to take some tips from your journey.
I would honestly tell you, life is not a linear path. We keep on thinking, we do this would become an opportunity. Yes, I am very lucky. I got some very nice people to work with. But do you realize also in law, I'm telling you in law, if you join a litigation office, they pay you nothing. Or they pay you 5,000 or they pay you 10,000 because it's a very litigation office. I'm not saying corporate. Corporate salaries are top of the line nowadays. Why? Because it's again a conservative old profession. Now it's still improved, but it's improved to what? You are 23, 24. I do not think any litigation office would pay you more than 15, 20,000. Sounds very disappointing. Our times, my first was 2,500, I think. And I am not ancient. So I'm not talking about 1960s or 1970s, right? So that is one part of it. So as I again said, when I started this, I was talking about Harvard, risk versus reward. If you go to a good office, you would have good experiences, but you probably will have a lesser paycheck. And why about us? If you go to Bollywood, big directors, if they give you a break, they will not pay you like a youngster. An average director would pay you. So that cost benefit analysis, I'm not saying that's something great, but the cost benefit analysis you have to make of where you want to go. For one example, I'll tell you, I have been told many times by certain television channels to take a remuneration. I do not, because then you would be tied to that channel. Then you may lose your freedom of speech. But some others may think, oh, it's a assured income. And they may think, oh, it is going to ensure I'm every day on TV. Because obviously if they're paying you, they will use you. So these are cost benefit analysis you have to do. But I think on opportunity, I have a very firm belief on opportunity. And it's not right, I'm not giving you one example. Lockdown happened. I didn't have a YouTube channel on lockdown, which is an important medium to talk to people. Lockdown happened. I had time courts were shut down. I said, what to do? And I'm not very technologically savvy. So I was talking to people. They said, YouTube channel khol lete hain. I said, okay. I opened a YouTube channel. Because I have friends, I started calling some interesting guests, and it was completely in English. A conversation on with one friend I did on isms, that is all the ism, communism, so liberalism, communism, etc. All these concepts. So that channel I started on YouTube, okay, and how these isms are bad. From you can have any time of ism in this, right? Hinduism, Islamism, liberalism, communism. I don't remember exactly the ones we went into. So that was the purpose of channel. Then I called, if you know, a very famous author, in fact, one of the best in India, he's a friend, Amish. So Amish came on the channel, he talked. So I was having these sort of conversations with people. So and Amish would come and tell him how he shifted from IIM Ahmedabad to becoming a novelist to, he's a diplomat in London now. So, and a great guy, you should read his books, very nicely he writes. So I brought him twice. Then I brought other people, Abhijit Bhattacharya, he's a Bollywood singer, of most of the songs of Shah Rukh Khan used to sing. So I used bringing that, started something new. Then Sushant Singh Rajput happened. The channel, from an English channel having debates on what you would call very dry topics, became suddenly a channel which was doing with Bollywood, drugs, this, that, and in Hindi. So it just, you know, just do things. Do as many things as you can, because when you start them, you do not know the direction. You do not know the mode. You do not know what will happen 2 months down the line. But what you do know is, if I quote Napoleon, somebody asked Napoleon, a famous general, how do you plan to win a war? How much planning goes into, what is the best way of winning a war? How do you strategize? How do you plan to win a war? He said, start a war. So start doing things. Then as you go along, and you are not war, so none of you is going to have you know, bad consequences. Do things, do as many different things as you can. Some will grow, some will not, but net you would be the gainer.
Thank you, sir. This is a question that I wanted to ask regarding the NCB at large. Is the Narcotics Control Bureau's decisions or findings contestable in court? And are the confessions made to NCB admissible in court? And moreover, are the conditions under which the confession was made taken in consideration?
You're planning to be a law student? See,
yes, sir.
Okay. See, everything, let me put you in a, and this is something again I would say, before you become a specialist, and today's world is of specialists, understand the general principles, because they float around all laws. You could be a drug lawyer, you could be a matrimonial lawyer, you could be, to give one example, Arnab Goswami, who owns Republic TV, got a notice from Maharashtra Assembly. Maharashtra Assembly is very different from NCB, right? It's a constitutional body. But the foundating principles across laws are the same. So the foundating principle is that confession to a police officer will not be admissible unless it leads to discovery or something. So certain laws have exceptions to that. TADA, POTA, these terror laws had exceptions to that. And that is very strongly contested even today, because when you are in custody, you will confess to anything. You will literally confess to anything. You have no agency. That is why there are statements before magistrate you have to record, etc. To the second and more important point, every law is challengeable in court. Every finding is challengeable in court. That is the hallmark of a democracy. In 50s, 60s, a lot of parliamentary laws used to be made which were not under judicial review. Judicial review is that the courts will not examine them. Nowadays, it's a bygone concept since 80s. Everything you do, whether it's in fact, ours is one of the strongest judiciaries in the world. In fact, I call it the strongest judiciary, because they, Keshav Nand Bharti onwards, said that if Parliament amends a constitution, amendment, as you know, Paul signs a special process, right? Even then we will have judicial review. So they said that the constitution has a basic structure, that you cannot amend the constitution beyond a point. which is unheard of in any other democracy. If US amends something by special procedure, that's the voice of the people. That is what the law is. You could change the constitution entirely in some country. In fact, in all countries almost, you can change the constitution lock, stock, and barrel. In India, you won't be able to, because there is this thing called basic structure. So in that sense, when the parliament, when it does by special majorities and state assemblies ratify it, even that is challenged. What is NCB or police, everything is challengeable in court in India on the broad aspect.
Thank you, sir. Next question is by Abhiranjan. Sir, alongside being a renowned lawyer, you're also a famous figure today. Do you think your celebrity status has helped you as an advocate, or it has also proven to be detrimental at times?
It is honestly weird, if nothing else. Some of the things I've realized, I've been coming on TV now for 6-7 years, and it's consistently, like with everything else, it consistently grows the more you come, and if you perform well, it will keep growing. In a sense, it's unreal because at a very small level, I'm not a celebrity, that's the wrong thing, that those are all people who are there, but it is one is not used to it. Like if I'm walking, it has happened many times, or I'm in a restaurant, somebody comes and meets you excitedly or with a big smile, you don't understand why they're doing that. So it takes 2 seconds for your, you're not used to it. It takes 2 seconds for your brain to, and then once I was in, this is what, 2 years ago, before all this, those are people who are very strongly watching politics. So I was getting up from Bristol, I still remember that, only 3 years ago, I don't know. Somebody had a laptop on, I got up, paid the cashier, was going on, and then the entire screen was filled with my images. So the guy probably was trying to figure out, is it Ishkaran, is it not Ishkaran? So he must have done an image search. So all that is very smiling. I went to him, I smiled. I said, yeah, but why are you? And then he wanted a photo. So now it has become worse or better. I do not know how to say it. It's just strange. And if you have read Rudyard Kipling, I always say whether people recognize you or don't, do read if it's one of the better poems. It doesn't matter. You do your thing. Some people will dislike you for what you do. Some people will dislike your stand. Some people will dislike what you speak. Some will like what you speak. It's in a larger sense, it should all be irrelevant to you, because this is just some byproduct which has no significance to what you do.
Right. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Due to paucity of time, we'll move on to the last question now. The last question is by Malay. Sir, in professions such as law, I'm certain you must have at some point found yourself in an ethical dilemma. At such times, where do you found your moral grounds?
It's a difficult question because, see, law says is kind of like medicine. It says if you take up a case, defend to the best of your ability. And civilizations are based on everybody having a fair chance of defense. India gave even Ajmal Kasab, a terrorist caught with a gun in his hand, a fair trial. That is what democracies are based. Unfortunately, public sentiment is, and in a social media age, the direct opposite of what you would say intellectually a democracy is. Giving you one example, and you are a young student and girl student, so you would understand. Hyderabad, a rape case happened, and police shot the accused in encounter. Whether it's a genuine encounter or it is an illegal encounter, I won't get into it because that is pending before the court, but it is a very convenient encounter, let's put it like that. And if you do a poll, I did a poll on Twitter, almost 90% people said, Bilkul theek kiya. And as you said, popularity, I said it's wrong. We gave Ajmal Kasab also a trial. Right now, you're all baying for blood. You think it is a good thing you did. And I was attacked and vakil hai. So, people attack also in a very vicious manner. It's okay. I don't mind. As I said, it's water off a duck's back. That, oh, you wanted them as your clients. I said, bhai, they were people from a slum, I think. None of them is going to pay me. I don't go to Hyderabad. It has nothing to do with me. It's just an issue. And I'll tell you what the issue is. and I'm again repeating, I can easily duck this question because 90% of people, I did a poll on my timeline, wanted the encounter, forget the law. I said, please understand, what you do by doing this is make the job of police very easy. Something wrong happens. They pick up 5 boys, 4 boys, 10 boys, 3 boys, or it could be some other crime. It could be a riot, it could be anything. They do an encounter. The case is over. So convenient for police. So easy for police. And how do you know out of the 4, 3 were involved and 1 was not? Or how do you know that all 4 were involved and there were 2 more involved whom the police has now protected by doing away with these 4? So those questions now can't be answered. Whereas if it goes to trial, those things come out. So what is your immediate bloodlust or your immediate sense of justice? And we have been historically programmed for immediate justice through the centuries. And that is a DNA biological impulse. That is why our civilization, democracy, system of law, if we have been humans for 50,000 years, 1 lakh years, 20,000 years, whatever your people, different views are there, law courts and organized systems are very recent, because you have to distance yourself from the moment to be into that. So when a Kasab gets a trial, it is for the betterment of the country. When a rapist gets a trial, when a accused gets a trial, otherwise you would make the job of police so easy. Pick up a person, something happens, the public also supports, case closed, very good for them.
Yeah, one last question from our principal, Mrs. Sood, please.
Sorry, I'm probably, we could have taken another child's question, but I appreciate Malay's question because, we've got friends who are lawyers and you always turn around and ask them the whole thing about an ethical dilemma. And as a lawyer, has there ever been a chance where obviously we say that you're innocent till proven guilty, but while you're actually doing the investigation and whatever for a particular case, you're sure of the fact that the person who you are actually representing is guilty. Because obviously you're able to figure out or if the person's lying or guilty or whatever. Have you ever distanced yourself midway through a particular case, which you may have taken up because you've realized that the person who you're representing is definitely not worth being represented and he needs to be hanged or he needs to be convicted or whatever?
2 parts I will answer. One of them is what everybody faces, in the sense that once you pick up a case, sometimes in any fight, you get so invested in it, it is not actually so easy to realize that what you are defending is wrong or not. Some are very obvious cases. They come to you and in the beginning they are guilty, right? But some other cases are in this gray area where is the person, especially in bigger cases, is the person being fixed or is the person actually guilty? It's very difficult for even a lawyer to decide. I'm not talking about the obvious cases. Somebody is a part of a gang and has come from a gang. So those are obvious cases. I presume you're talking about the borderline gray cases, right? The obvious ones is generally then there's also different. But those gray cases, it is very difficult to decide who's guilty and who's not. And secondly, the other part of it is that even if somebody is, let's say, guilty, you won't lie to the court. You will not, then you get into those technical zones if you do it. That the evidence was not collected in the best manner. This is not somebody reliable. Then you go into the technical defenses rather than lying. But honestly, in India, that thing of distancing and honest also depends on what sort of practice you do. That is only if you do very exclusively a criminal practice. In civil, even if you are wrong, the consequences are monetary. So those ethical dilemmas are obviously going to be a lot less. Whereas in criminal, those dilemmas could be a lot more. And generally, most criminal lawyers then make up their mind of what sort of a person and what sort of a practice they want to do. But corporate won't have that many, or even they had, though, you won't call it ethical dilemma, it will be money manipulations. Criminal, then yes, a lawyer has to make a call. For example, Ram Jethmalani would always say that It's for the judge to decide. I have to represent to the best of my ability. So that's my function. And then it's the function of the judge. So I am doing my thing. Or as some people give the example of a medical doctor, he has to operate, he has to save life irrespective of who the person is. And then the consequence, even if somebody is to be hanged the next day, he has a stroke, the doctor still has to, you know. So those are very individual questions people take. I try to avoid such cases now, especially, but a very individual choice. And society does need lawyers to defend. As I told you, I won't take Ajmal Kasab's case, but society does need somebody to defend an Ajmal Kasab also.
Thank you so much, sir. All your answers have been very informative. I'll now call Mrs. Harpreet Kaur for the vote of thanks.
Well, on behalf of Army Public School Dholatpur family, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to you, Ishkaran, for sparing your valuable time from your very busy schedule to be with us this afternoon. It was indeed a very impressive, on the face and informative session, the much Ishkaran type. I'm sure our students are going to be hugely benefited by it, especially the lawyers to be. I'm also very convinced now that after this session, your fan base is going to multiply manifold. Thank you once again to be with us. It means a lot to us. Hopefully, we are going to collect school. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving the opportunity. And it was fabulous interacting with the students. And thank you, Principal Ma'am. Thank you, everybody, for the opportunity. I was very happy to come and speak. Thank you.
The pleasure was ours. Thank you.